Hell, is this a back camera? Hello, sir. Looks like a back camera. Oh, it's just a screen cam. What the fuck? So weird. Hello. Again. Anyway, enjoy my video. Hello, can I just? What is happening with the camera? Hello, the camera's back here. Here. Here's the camera. Okay. So today I'm at the front of. I'm at the backside of the camera. Today we're just going to enjoy day. We're going to see. Oh, someone's alive. Who is that guy? Someone's alive. I don't know. Can't even know who is that. Anyway, let's play some games. Yay. Can't even see what I'm doing. Right. Here. Now you can see what I'm doing, but you can't actually see. Diet. Ah, much better. Now you can see me. Pandemic. What's the difference in epidemic and pandemic? I like to ask Google. Let's ask Google. Google, what is the difference between a pandemic and epidemic? Oh. Oh. So epidemic is only one region, but pandemic is entire region. Oh, so that's why they call it epidemic. It means one region having an outbreak. That makes sense. The region. The derma epidemic. It's going to be live for quite a while. How? Ah, yeah, they always say that. Like garbage not collected. Quite annoying, but garbage is connected. Police. Good. Parks. Some people are not that happy because they don't have much parks. So I only built 2 parks. Sports, Allen Square. One stadium. The other side is another stadium. A third stadium down the road. Down the road is a third stadium. Now I built a piece of road. Sports, we got religions. Yeah, management's fine. Let's see if the live is still on. Hello, back again. Back for 5 minutes straight. Let's see how people are doing. Hello. Let's see how people are doing. Hello, hello. Where is the camera? Right over here. Okay. Hello. Camera's in a weird angle, but I can still see it. No one's online. No one's giving a like. This then. Pop out dash with some feedback. Let me see. Oh, it goes to the content editor. Then more. Moderate live chats. Oh, very laggy. Someone's on. Okay. Edit. There's edit mode. What's this edit? Title or customization. Oh, okay. Anyone. Okay. Cancel. I don't know what's this. Manage. Podcast. I don't know. No idea. Give love. This. Top chat. Live chat. Close. Okay. Start the Q&A. Here. Yes. And Q&A. Got it. Sure, Titty. Let's get a poll. Fast. VDS. Oh, fast. Now. I know my question is too long. Start poll. Gay, lucky. My stream is very lucky. Okay, let's start poll. Now. Just G. Let's start it. Fast. End poll. Let's see. Let's go outside. Oh, it's very lucky. I'm going to be on live for 12 hours. Yes, 12 hours. That's the limit for YouTube videos, so it's going to be the longest video I have ever made in my life. So laggy. So laggy. Let's see. So laggy. I know, right? Stop saying it's full. Okay, I want to basically get a road first. Okay, now I just want to clean it up. He's not. Freaking hell, the ad's just black. This is the ad. Almost have enough infinite amount of money. The only thing that wastes money is just garbage. Just the is that called again? Oh yeah, I remember. The airport. I just only need one zone. Fine. He's not ad.
I'm going out tonight. Perfect. Just right. Seriously? Awful. Thank you so much. Oh my god. Let's prepare for my day. Perfect. Oh my god. Don't do this for me. No more help.
I'll let do whatever you recommend me to. It's my own rule. This is all one say. I connected the Danube, Ocean, and Sublin into one gigantic sea, trying to connect them all to the next sea. Like this, by a district of Ayo, they are connected. They are connected to the coastline there. At time.
なんてこと、主様、私にご用でしょうか。今年のバレンタインはあなたにとって苦い思い出になるかもしれませんね。
Which I can use ads. I know it. How does each light is no electricity? Makes zero sense. What the hell is happening, doggy? Say you. What do you do? Try. Give deals slump lump trunk. I'll call this town Solovagon. Solovangrand. To Solovangrand. Oh, I accidentally bombed the park. We're very sorry, though. I put down another pike. What's your choose? Again. It's amazing that they don't even know what religion these Indians usually believe. Most Indians believe in Hinduism. Most. Some don't, of course. There are exceptions. And most most Pakistanis are basically yeah, Muslims. It's amazing that Murray can't even tell the difference. My God, no. Whoever thought this ego would never even descend to this ego? It's amazing. I'm gonna ask my friend to tell them what's the difference. Next time I want to hear that. Next time I see my friend coming, I'm going to ask him to make a full-on video on what's the difference. Yeah, I know that you can rotate the city as much as you like, but I always like it the same way as it was. Welcome to Yoko Hondak Wood Hyunda Todie Slur. Okay, another ad time. I'm going to end the stream as long as the stream hits 12 hours long. Very, very hot. I can probably cook an egg on it. Let's do the transfer, boss. Okay, take a right over here. Oh, so right over here, the metro station. I'll say right over here, somewhere way over here. Add time. This is not there. See, it's right here, very convenient to need to put ads on the same. Another ad. It might not be 12 hours long. As long as I can do it. Though making it 12 hours is a long time. Impossible. Chevrolet also means soil.
It's time for it.
不是，就这款魔盗魂手游，上位的怎么可能是我呢？叮叮叮！
I'm used to alcohol and I'm a person who like takes weed. Never take weed. I'm an American who takes weed.
真有呢，真有呢。我早说了，我这样的发掉，
It's almost an hour. Streaming. We got streaming. Okay. Same exact ad, I think. It should be everything. Um, it's awesome. See more friends. I have 3,102 friends on Facebook, please. Everybody wants to be my friend on Facebook. Greetings.
别够长。
Some Vancouver. Canada, of course. The place can be Vancouver, then Canada. Yeah, so it's 2000 that. What is this, my friend?
Can I legally become my parents' favourite child? Also, win a bet. Like,
Oh. Yeah, sure.
like something just the streets thing again. It was fun.
Oh, that's okay.
當局截至中午收到超過1200宗臨時報告，而天文台原先警告蘇拉帶嚟嘅風暴潮同山竹差唔多，但對中丹歐同里倫郡等嘅重災區情況都唔嚴重。氣象專家解釋，蘇拉對接近香港嗰陣好彩通風嘅。
蘇拉最接近香港嘅時候，中心風力高達200公里。蘇拉當時正進行眼壁置換，雙風眼，內眼壁更加橫過香港東部。從衛星雲圖可以見到，風眼嘅結構比原本較為分散。
喺眼壁自轉嘅過程當中咧，颱風係有時會係減弱嘅。咁如果佢嗰個眼壁自轉嘅過程係成咗嗰個結構之後咧，咁佢嘅強度就會增加。咁但係啱啱如果喺個自換過程當中係佢弱嘅時候，接近香港個風暴潮咪細啲咯，佢方面細啲咯。
各區嘅風暴潮都較天文台嘅預測弱。原本預計維港水位會去到海圖基準線以上3至3.5米，最後上升到最高1.83米，而大澳去到1.99米，遠低於預測嘅3.5至3.8米。梁榮武解釋，蘇拉雖然係超強颱風，中心風力好強，但係環流緊密，較山竹細。
山竹係一個好大嘅颱風嚟嘅。咁如果係大嘅颱風咧，佢係將大即係個海水趕埋岸邊，而蘇拉係一個細嘅颱風，佢所以趕到埋岸邊嘅水嘅體積一定係相對少嘅。
佢又話，蘇拉基本上沿住廣東沿岸移動，山竹嘅移動角度較大，引起嘅風暴潮都會較大。無線電視記者黎維山報導。
而喺澳門，8號東南風球仍然生效。氣象局話，下晝3點改為3號風球。三岸沿線澳門同珠海嘅口岸朝早恢復通關。跟啲嘢喺澳門報導。
澳門朝早風勢仍然強勁，部分樹木被吹倒，仍然未清理。氣象局早前預料，朝早天文大潮，低洼地區有機會出現水浸。內港未見有水浸，但有渠道出現海水倒灌，有工人清理渠口。
琴晚咁樣真係好大風，但係而家水浸嚟講咧就冇水浸嘅，咁我會損失就暫時咧就都冇嘅，因為會供使影響。
氣象局話，由於蘇拉減弱程度較預期大，所造成嘅風暴水
It's our 1 hour review of our live. I did like it. Except my girls are doing some ads.
朝早9點恢復通關。
因为开关了，可以正常上班了，有可能台风比较严重吧，所以就关了。
最冇得第一次啊嘛，關口都係應該有3年係第一次喎，睇咗風馬入邊啦。
種住啲麻，少啲啊你，少啲啊！
你唔夠飯咁少嘅，咁你唔夠飯嘅你唔得飯。
可以啊，開埋先，可以啊，可以啊。
嚟睇 show 但乜都睇唔到啊！係咪想有隻船撐到最前，點玩都得嘅？睇翻我啦，飲啖笑冰，原定畫都夠盡興啦！
Have you ever seen a golfer putt a golf ball into the hole and then watch as the golf ball pops back out again? Well, this is why that happens. If you throw a ball into a cylinder and in the right direction, it will come back out again. But why does that happen? Ever since my friend who kind of showed me this demonstration, I've been trying to figure out an intuitive explanation for what's going on. My first idea was to think about it from the point of view of the ball. From the ball's point of view, it feels a force flinging it towards the outside of the cylinder. That's the centrifugal force. Yes, centrifugal force is a fictitious force that you only experience in a non-inertial reference frame, but that's exactly what we're doing. We're looking at it from the point of view of the ball, which is rotating around the cylinder. So it's being pulled towards the wall and it's being pulled down by gravity. So if we were to unwrap the cylinder, make it flat, and then tilt it, well, we should have the same thing. We've got gravity pulling the ball vertically downward, but you can split that into two components. One pulling it towards the wall, and one pulling it parallel to the wall. So if I throw a ball at this, will it pop back up again? My intuition says no, and of course it doesn't. So the effect must come from the fact that it's rotating around something, because the effect goes away in the flat equivalent of this. I've had a couple of papers that go through the maths. One analyzes the equations of motion from a rotating reference frame, the other from an inertial reference frame. And they both conclude that, yes, this is what we should expect to happen. Why let's get to prove something like that? The mathematics didn't really give me an intuition of what was happening, like a hand-waving explanation, if you like. Another thing that's good about working through the maths is you get to dig out some really interesting details. Like one thing that's really surprising is if the ball doesn't bounce out, it actually oscillates up and down. According to mathematics, this would carry on forever if it wasn't for things like air resistance. And the fact that the ball slips sometimes instead of rolling so that gravity can eventually take over. That's not the interesting part though. The interesting part is what happens when you count the oscillations. Like how many times will the ball go around the cylinder for every one vertical oscillation? And you might think, well, that depends on the mass of the ball or the radius of the ball or the radius of the cylinder. But what the math shows us is that the ratio is always the square root of 7 divided by 2. If the ball was hollow, it would be the square root of 5 divided by 2. We can verify that to some extent in this video. Though it's not easy to measure this angle from this side, and there needs the sine to identify the vertical oscillation. So it can only be approximate. But it's roughly 2 turns for every up and down of the ball, and the square root of 7 over 2 is roughly 2. So doing the experiment for real certainly doesn't disprove it. If only I had 2 high-speed cameras so I could. From the top and the side at the same time. Those numbers, 7/2 and 5/2, might ring a bell actually, if you remember my video about the turntable paradox. In that demonstration, there are 7 turns of the turntable for every 2 orbits of the ball. I explained in that video that the numbers come from calculating the moment of inertia of a sphere, which is just how hard it is to rotate this. To calculate that, you have to integrate the moment of inertia of all the little masses throughout the ball. You get a different answer for a hollow sphere, which is why you get a different number for a hollow ball, both in the turntable and in the cylinder. I haven't been able to demonstrate the behavior of a hollow ball in this cylinder for one very good reason. For this demonstration to work at all, you need lots and lots of friction, because this only works if the ball rolls without slipping. Fortunately, it's really easy to get hold of non-slip balls. That's because in the distant past, non-slip balls were a really important feature of computer mice, and those balls are still relatively easy to come by. As a side note, it's interesting to see how a mouse ball is constructed. If I cut one open, you can see there's a pretty hefty ball bearing in there, and that makes sense. You want the mouse ball to make good contact with the desk beneath it. So you take a big steel ball bearing and you coat it in a high-friction coating. As yet, I've been unable to find an equivalently high-friction surface hollow ball. Future Steve here just had a flipping brainwave. Squash balls. They're high friction and they're hollow. Analysing this video, the ratio seems to be about 1.75 to 1. In other words, the ball goes around the cylinder 1.75 times for every 1 vertical oscillation of the ball. We expect it to be the square root of 5 divided by 2, but that's actually about 1.6, so we're a little bit off. But actually, a squash ball isn't perfectly hollow. Nothing in the real world is. Because the walls of a squash ball are quite thick, we should expect the ratio to be a little higher than the square root of 5 over 2. That's because as the wall thickness increases, you eventually end up with a solid ball. So we should expect the ratio to increase from the square root of 5 divided by 2 towards the square root of 7 divided by 2. Actually, on a similar note, the ratio we get for a mouse ball seems to be consistently a little bit higher than the square root of 7 divided by 2. And I think we can explain that as well. Because the ball has a solid steel core, the mass of the ball is somewhat concentrated towards the middle. That actually increases the moment of inertia of the ball, so we should expect the ratio to be slightly higher. But what about a nice intuitive explanation of what's going on here? Well, first thought, maybe this is related to gyroscope. Like, you've got a ball that's spinning around this axis, and it's rolling around the inside of the cylinder, but then you've also got gravity pulling down on it. So you've got the ball spinning like this. It's pressed against the wall, and it's being pulled down by gravity. You might know that when you try to twist the axis of a gyroscope, it doesn't behave the way you would expect. The angle changes instead at 90 degrees to the applied force. So as gravity pulls down on the ball, this axis of rotation of the ball will tilt like this. Suddenly now the ball is pointing in this direction. That suggests that for the demonstration to work, you need gravity pulling down the ball parallel to the axis of the cylinder. It does this phenomenon use gravity to work. To test that, I put the whole thing on its side. And look, even with that gravity pulling the ball through the cylinder, you still get the ball changing direction and popping back out. This is the highest frame rate I can get on my studio camera. But brilliantly, I have access to this that can do 1,000 frames per second in HD. I'm definitely not using this camera to its full potential, by the way, because this is actually a motion amplification camera. The reason I'm telling you that is because I'm on the lookout for ideas of what I can do with this thing. You might remember my video about motion amplification. Tiny imperceptible movements in a video can be amplified and analysed, and it helps predict where problems will arise in an industrial setting. RDI Technologies sent me the camera in case I wanted to make a follow-up video. If you have any ideas or things you would like to see the minute vibrations of amplified, then let me know in the comments. Or even better, join my Discord server and let me know there. There's a whole section for video ideas, link in the description for the Discord server, but also a link to RDI Technologies for all your motion amplification needs. But anyway, I think I've worked out an intuitive explanation. We assume the ball is thrown in at an angle, so the ball is spinning around this axis here, when we first throw it in. And the gyroscopic effect is going to try and maintain the direction of that axis of rotation. So what happens as the ball makes its way around the inside of the cylinder? Well, let's suppose that the gyroscopic effect has maintained the direction of spin when the ball gets a quarter of a way around the cylinder. The axis of rotation is now pointing into the wall of the cylinder. So what effect does that have? As I rotate the ball in this orientation, that causes the ball to roll in a horizontal path. But by the time the ball has reached the opposite wall from where it started, if we assume that the axis of rotation hasn't changed, well, now the ball is rolling upwards a little bit. Then after 3/4 of a turn, it'll be rolling horizontally. And then after a full turn, they'll be rolling downwards again. I'm not sure if that's a good explanation or not, but what I do know is that it's definitely incomplete. That's because if this was a full explanation, well, the ratio of horizontal rotations to vertical oscillations would be 1:1. 1 turn for every 1 up and down. And we know it isn't that. It's the square root of 7 divided by 2. I don't think that means we have to completely abandon my intuitive explanation. It's just that in my explanation, the axis of rotation doesn't change during the entire journey of the ball. But in reality, that axis of rotation is pulled around, forced to change by its contact with the wall. But it's the resistance to that change, or maybe the lag in that change, that allows for this slow up and down oscillation. And actually, that kind of fits with the different ratio that you get for a hollow ball versus a solid ball. A hollow ball has all the mass concentrated on the outside, meaning that it's harder to turn. Its moment of inertia is larger. Because it's harder to turn, it's harder to change its axis of rotation. So for a hollow ball, we should expect the ratio to be closer to the answer that I got with my naive assumption that the axis of rotation doesn't change at all. And in fact, it is closer. I'll leave a link to those two papers in the comments. If anyone can turn that mathematics into an intuitive description, then please let me know, because so far that's eluded me. Here's something that I haven't said before about the sponsor of this video, Incogni. First, let me explain what Incogni does in case you don't remember from the last time. Basically, there are all these companies called data brokers that collect data about you and then sell that data to you.
These 4 games.
The Windows Task Manager may not be the best code that I've ever written, but it was the best that I could do 30 years ago, and I think it's more than withstood the test of time. Hey, I'm Dave. Welcome to my shop. I'm Dave Plummer, a retired operating systems engineer from Microsoft, going back to the MS-DOS and Windows 95 days, but I'm the original author of the Windows Task Manager. Today, we're going to take a detailed look at both the original creation of Windows Task Manager and then go over some insider secrets that I've baked into the mix. I wrote the first drafts of Task Manager in my den at home and then took the resulting program into work. Back in those days, we followed a practice known as eating our own dog food, which meant that we self-hosted on the newest daily build of Windows NT, even as we worked through. Eventually, a number of other developers talked me into giving a copy of my Task Manager, and it spread amongst the team. It eventually came to the notice of Dave Cutler, the designer of Windows NT, and second at the company, perhaps only to Bill Gates as far as we were concerned. Fortunately, he was a big fan of the fledgling Task Manager and gave me permission to add it to the main Windows source tree. Once I had put it into the product, a senior developer named Mark Mikowski was essential to keep it there. He served as its occasional champion, fending off the complaints from the designers of Windows 95 who found the whole thing overly technical and nerdy in a way that ran contrary to their mission of simplifying the PC experience. Of course, it likely didn't help that Dave C. initially having put it at the very top of the start menu, which was basically received as a big middle finger by the Windows 95 shell designers. I moved the link to somewhere reasonable like System Tools, and everybody seemed satisfied. No money exchanged hands and no contracts were signed. I simply added it to the project source tree and changed the copyright editors. It was very much a wild west in those days compared to how you would go about it these days. The best part about it was, at the time, at least from my perspective, was that once I added it to the product, my favorite hobby then became my day job. The software that I had been tinkering with my den now became my primary full-time job for a few months. It'd be very much like you had a hobby of building little birdhouses, and one day you brought them in to show your boss, and the boss was like, you know, Dave, we really like your little birdhouses. We're going to pay you to build them here at work for a while. My birdhouses just happen to be task manager. When putting a new block of code like task manager into the source tree, you can't just stick a piece of shareware into an operating system and call it good, particularly when that code will be somewhat mission critical. There's a huge difference in the required code quality and robustness between an app that you crank out over a weekend and an important part of the Windows operating system. We usually do. It would take a lot of work to bring my early draft up to the standards required for inclusion in the operating system, and that work will be part of my day job for the next couple of months. As you can imagine, when it comes to an app like Task Manager, the accuracy of the data that it's reporting is paramount, and early in its development, I was chasing an annoying bug related to total CPU usage. It was all calculated very precisely for each process based on the system accounting, but when they were added up individually, very, very rarely, it would briefly show a total greater than 100%. I stared at my code until I could barely see straight, but I just could not find the problem. I convinced myself that the problem had to be the kernel's accounting, but blaming the kernel is almost akin to blaming it must be a compiler bug when you really don't understand what your own code is doing. The bar for blaming the kernel guys was very, very high, and I did try, but they were engaged. They were pretty certain it had to be my problem. In order to try to catch this weird edge case, I placed an assertion in the code. Now, an assertion is a statement which verifies that a particular condition is always true, and I added one to continually check and validate on every machine everywhere, if the total was less than 100%, what we should do. It would also recheck that total once per second. My assertion would trigger
而家搏緊嘅就揾緊，
对，就200-300蚊应该挺轻。
咁貴2000蚊啊？
the total was ever more than 100%. The plan was to run this through the entire gauntlet of empty stress tests across the team. What's an empty stress test? Every developer, before they left, would start a test suite and put their PC to work running the day's latest test build of Windows under enormous load. It would call every API and do everything we think of to destabilize or crash the system so that we could attempt to catch those cases and debug through them and then fix them. There were many people whose full-time job was entirely to devise new ways to abuse the operating system in the hopes of breaking it. But these tests would run all night on every machine that we had, all while each was connected to it. But any oddity would be investigated by the developer responsible for that particular area. They could connect to the machine's debugger remotely from anywhere, even from home, and that gave them the opportunity to inspect the issue effectively live. Into this mix, I added my assertion message that the CPU time was never greater than 100% in total. If it ever was, an alert message would pop up on the user's desktop, and if empty stress were running, it would stop right there in the debugger. And yet nothing ever happened. We could never catch it during stress, and the few times that it did happen live during interactive daily use were harder to catch. Since repro cases were so exceedingly rare, I got a little desperate, and I did something unconventional. I put my home phone number in the server. If this ever happened to anyone in the company testing the product, I wanted to know about it right away, no matter what. And in the meantime, I moved back onto other issues and kind of forgot about the message. That was unfortunate because it means I also forgot to remove it and my home phone number before we publicly shipped the Windows beta far and wide around the world. It meant that every time the issue manifested itself to anyone, anywhere on the planet, my home phone number would be displayed to the user. Not smart. A few weeks later, I finally got a case and the debugger on a machine at work. I debugged it far enough to convince myself that the problem truly had to be in the kernel, and then I handed the debugger connection off to them to investigate further. Sure enough, there was, in fact, a tiny accounting error somewhere in the kernel that happened very rarely that would push the reported CPU time over 100. And Task Manager had just been dutifully reporting that total. It wasn't my bug, and now it was fixed, both of which made me happy. And so I removed my home phone number from future versions of Windows. 30 years later, I still have that same home phone number, and thankfully, nobody's ever called about it. I retired following Server 2003, but the people that have worked on Task Manager since have done an exemplary job of growing it while still maintaining the core attributes of reliability, responsiveness, and crisp painting that I instilled in the original. I couldn't be happier with how it works and looks today. Still, it'd be nice to know what file they locked by a particular process, or what process had locked a particular file. Which just goes to show there's always room for more features. And the only problem with that is the size. The original Task Manager is literally under 100K, including all code and resources. It's now a dozen times larger at many megabytes, but such comparisons are a bit unfair because it does so much more than the original, and now it's 64-bit. It's a delicate balance of load times and memory footprint versus features and functionality. One reason that it was important to maintain a small size is that Task Manager is a bit like the Highlander.
There can be only one.
Or at least there should be only one instance of it running at any time. There are a number of different ways that you can launch Task Manager, so managing a single instance problem really has to be up to the program itself. So Task Manager does this by looking for another instance as soon as it starts. If it finds one, it sends a private message to the existing instance with a challenge code. The running instance must provide the correct response within 10 seconds.
Stand by. Romeo, Oscar, November, Charlie, Tango, Lima, Alpha. Authentication.
Any failure or unexpected results along the way, and Task Manager will launch a new instance so that you're never in theory stuck without at least a usable Task Manager.
Stand by to authenticate. I agree with authentication also, sir.
Even if one becomes a zombie, another will be created to take its place. Your worst case then is having multiple Task Managers running.
You can kill me, but two more will take my place.
Then, I suppose if you were bored, you could have the two of them fight it out in a battle royale of process termination. You can even write rules and form teams and alternate leads, perhaps. Which gambit will you choose? Should you end the WoW task first, or try to recursively terminate the shell? Your move. Please be sure to invite me to your first gaming convention. And speaking of recursive termination, you'll notice that we always use non-violent imagery for Task Manager right from the beginning. You didn't kill a process or even terminate it. You simply ended things peacefully. That's not true behind the scenes of the code, however. That could lead to some very unfortunately named functions as time goes by. My original function to end a process was named kill process, using the same terminology as Unix had before me. Then, a few years later, someone was tasked with adding the ability to make that recursive, which they did. And in updating the name, they replaced the word process with all children, giving us the rather disturbingly named kill all children function. It's all internal, however, and none of this ever made it past the sanitizing action of the environment. Task Manager takes a number of other defensive steps so that it has the best shot at providing at least basic functionality that you would normally find on the processes page. For example, even though it's not the first page, it's created first. Then I check memory. And if I've gotten that far but memory is really low, as in under 8 megabytes, then you get a severely reduced Windows Task Manager with a much smaller memory footprint, but one that is still able to do the basic reporting and management. You should be able to get a Task Manager up and running with what today would be almost no free memory. Sometimes I took that ultra-conservative approach a little further than perhaps I needed to. In order to keep the footprint very small, I wanted to avoid linking in the compiler runtime libraries, as I was careful not to use any of the functions in the first place. Normally, you still need to do it in order to get the housekeeping functions such as static C++ object initialization, but I opted to implement all that work myself, affording me the ability to not pull in compiler runtimes at all. This kept the binary that much smaller, but it's a bit of an extreme and esoteric approach. One nice little touch owes its existence to a story I heard. Apparently, the GPS had failed on a helicopter near Seattle, and so the pilot needed to know his current location in order to set his bearings on the map. They came upon a low-rise office complex, so they hovered outside the window and quickly made up a little sign that said, "Where are we?" And the person inside the building furiously wrote up a sign of their own and held it up to the pilot, which read, "You are in a helicopter." To the amazement of the passengers, the pilot then flew directly to the airport. When questioned how he'd suddenly known which direction to fly, the pilot explained, "When I saw an answer that's technically correct, but totally unhelpful, I knew immediately we were outside Microsoft headquarters, and I knew my way from there." To address that sort of thing, Task Manager does some niceties, such as massaging air codes to make them more useful to the user. To that end, then, when a system API returned a less than useful code, such as invalid, to a response to an attempt to terminate or modify a process, I would massage that message into something at least a little more useful, such as, "The operation is not permitted on this process." In the event it gets an air condition it doesn't recognize, it goes to some lengths to get the system to parse the air into a meaningful message, with the aim being that you never get a useless message like, "Error, the operation completed successfully." In addition to the small size and robust robustness, my most important personal goal was actually flicker-free painting and resizing. Although the operating system provided all of the tools necessary, before Task Manager, I can't think of another application with that many list columns and controls that could be arbitrarily resized wide in all directions without flickering or flashing. It seems a minor thing until you've experienced it both ways. I went to some great lengths to avoid even a single instance of flicker. The process list, for one, is a fairly complex affair that takes full advantage of most everything that the excellent system list view control has to offer. For example, if only a single cell or a single row has changed in the complete process view, only that tiny little rectangle is invalidated and repainted. In the initial incarnation of Task Manager, I didn't want any rubber baby buggy bumpers to protect the user from themselves. By that, I mean that I wanted the operating system itself to be the arbiter of what you were allowed to do or not do, not me in the form of added rules inside the Task Manager. If you wanted to terminate the whole shell or even a process like WinLog on itself that would cause the system to then blue screen immediately, by design, you could do it, as long as you had the appropriate administrative system rights and credentials. You could also do things like mark a CPU-bound process as real-time priority, and it effectively would hang the system if you wished. That led to some bad press, however, as a few smarmy computer journalists showed how you could, as a super user with the correct rights, crash a Windows machine with Task Manager in a single click. Never mind that you could also delete the main hard drive partition as well, so it's kind of a silly point, but it made for bad PR. Thus, from that point on forward, Task Manager has had a few kid gloves to prevent you from doing anything too foolish to yourself. I somewhat missed the days when it was a sharp blade. And to extend that metaphor a little further, Task Manager has always gone to great lengths to be as practical as possible. For example, in circumstances, even the administrator cannot terminate a process in another user's logged-on session. Task Manager can do it, however, by first checking to see if you have the debug privilege on your account. If you do, you would be able to attach the debugger to that process and enforce it. So Task Manager does the work of enabling that privilege and terminating the process document for you. There's no point in pretending you couldn't do it for you. Another idiosyncrasy of the code is that it contains a number of functions and controls and data. For example,
Computer programming, I found something. I looked at it from every which way. I'm the smartest person I ever met, and I can't figure it out, so I came to the second. I see.
Example, there's Dave's frame window procedure, Dave's controls, Dave's frame class, Dave's group class, and so on. This was not so much a doff of the cap, my own megalomania, as a side effect of the code having started its life as a side project. These are all cases where the operating system provided a version of a control, such as a group box, but I superclassed it and customized its behavior. To distinguish my version from the system's original one, I simply added my name, Dave, as a prefix. It made sense when I was working alone on it, but I likely should have updated those names when we brought the code in-house. It was probably a priority 3-item in RAID, which is what we called our bug tracking database.
New RAID multi-bug kills all the bugs that bug you. Dead.
What often happens to trivial changes in the real world is that, being trivial, people procrastinate on them until they actually have spare time to work on trivial stuff. But by then, it's too late in the product cycle to accept even trivial changes that don't fix an important bug, and which in naming is not an important bug. And so, sometimes trivial but harmless items never get fixed, and as a result, the Dave classes have persisted across the ages. Most people know how to start Task Manager. What they may not know is that there are at least 10 ways that you can start Task Manager. You can press Control, Delete, and then pick Task Manager from that menu, which is what a lot of people end up doing. You can also press Windows X and pick it from the power user. You can then click the taskbar and select it from there. You can launch it from the start menu. You can bring up Start Run and type in Task Manager, and that will launch one for you, or you can enter that into a command window for the same result. You can even browse to taskmanager.exe in the System32 folder and double-click on it to run it manually. You could also create a shortcut to Task Manager and launch the shortcut. My personal favorite, however, is the one I added in the Windows. By definition, always logged in. Simply press Control-Shift-Escape, which will signal the logon manager to start a fresh Task Manager for you, even if everything else is bugged. This is also a handy shortcut if you're working in a VM, because you don't then have to deal with some special control sequences captured by the host. Trust me, though, Control-Shift-Escape is the way the kids are all doing that. Until they were updated sometimes around Windows 8, the graphs of Task Manager was state of the art. For 1995, that is. It's been updated after I retired, and it looked great. The new dark mode looked good as well. One feature that didn't last more than one version, however, was the 7-segment LED-style meters that I used for CPU and memory. Quaint at the time, perhaps, they were problematic to localize into other fonts or for right-to-left languages and so on, and so they were replaced with normal text by the time the new XP was released. Task Manager has one final trick up its sleeve for resiliency. If, for some reason, it gets into a state where it's broken and doesn't know it, you can force Task Manager to do a factory reset by starting the program and then, before it has a chance to open its main window, holding down Control, Shift, and Alt at the same time. It'll be pretty fast on today's hardware to get it that quickly, but if you can, you might just be the one trick that saves the day on a corrupted system. Speaking of Task Manager secrets, here's a few others. If all your title bar has disappeared and you just have a graph, double-click any dead client space to switch back to normal mode. This no title bar mode that I added is a mode to follow the original NT clock, which was around where you could remove all the borders as well, but it confused more people than it ever helped. I'm quite sure. If the shell can't start something or is hung, try Task Manager. It has a mode where it will load without any references to shell 32 DLL and allow you to start a program like CMD without starting. In fact, if it gets to the point that it can't start anything at all, it has a special code to invoke the command window as your last resort. Try this. Hold down the Control key and click on the new task menu. No matter what, you should get a raw CMD window with whatever credentials you had in Task Manager. You can find the binary for any executing process in the process table by right-clicking and picking Show File Location. You can also search it online, but I don't know if they have that much useful information yet. In terms of the UI, a lot of people don't in fact realize that you can add many additional information columns, remove others, and drag them around in the order and so on. And thankfully, Task Manager will remember your sizing and layout the next time you want. I hope you've enjoyed today's insider look at the Task Manager. I'm not selling anything, and I'm mostly in this for the subs and likes, so
what you're about to see is a former U.S. intelligence official in July 2023 testifying under oath regarding the U.S. government's interaction with unidentified extraterrestrial aircraft and their
If you believe we had crash craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my news nation review, biologics, some of these recoveries.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human?
Non-human, that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge and program property that are currently still.
No, your ears aren't deceiving you. United States Air Force officer and intelligence official David Grush, among other government officials, is genuinely claiming that we are not alone in the universe, and that in fact, the U.S. government has been keeping the world in the dark about some truly crazy findings.
I think that is not true.
For years, have extraterrestrials really been visiting and even spying on us for decades? Today, we'll be attempting to get to the bottom of that question, from mysterious snapshots of unexplainable flying objects to official government reports and a possible interview with an alien being. Here's some of the best evidence we have proven aliens exist.
Aliens exist. Wow. Aliens.
This first story has been corroborated by multiple highly reliable military personnel. It's probably the most striking proof of alien life. Technology visiting Earth. That's why I'm going to explain it first and in depth. We even have the footage to prove it. It goes like this. A naval strike group, led by the U.S. aircraft carrier, the USS Nimitz, was conducting pre-deployment exercises off the northwest coast of Mexico in late 2004. On the 10th of November, USS Princeton picked up unusual radar signals near San Francisco. These signals didn't appear as any known aircraft. They would randomly appear in groups of 5 to 10 at a time. The senior operator of the radar system, almost 2 decades of experience working with these systems, and was an expert with this scientific system at the time of the incident. So he was puzzled as to what was going on. Suspecting a malfunction, the recently updated 5-1 radar was switched off and recalibrated. To everyone's surprise, This only led to radar tracks that become even stronger. They observed firsthand how the targets performed physics-defying feats. For example, the object moved too fast to be birds, too slow to be conventional aircraft, and in some cases, descended from space to sea level in seconds. Imagine dropping in altitude from over 20,000 meters in mere seconds. Now that's heard. Then the object would tail up. These observations were witnessed for multiple days. Each time they occurred, the crew would view these tiny specks moving irregularly distance with their high-powered binoculars on board. Then, on the morning of November the 14th, something extraordinary unfolded. Strike Fighter Squadron 41 took off from the aircraft carrier on a regular training operation when suddenly these mysterious radar tracks were spotted again. Lieutenant Douglas Kirk was instructed to investigate the unknown object approaching from the south. As he made his way to the coordinates, he saw a large disturbance in the water and claims to have seen something submerged just below the surface. He said it reminded him of a submarine fish below the surface of the ocean. That group of ships did include the U.S.-based Louisville and the submarine, and it was in the vicinity, so it could have been the reason for the turbulence in the water. What was witnessed later was now seen and plausible. This Kurd was joined by two other fighter jets, both containing two people each, the lead of which was piloted by Commander David Fraser. Fraser also claims to have seen the disturbance on the ocean and described it as much larger than a submarine. As Kurd made his way back to the Nimitz, Commander Fraser and his wingman decided to take a closer look. Now, I'm going to show you the clip of Commander Fraser explaining this encounter in his own words in front of Congress, animating the story as he goes.
We arrived at the location at approximately 20,000 feet. The controller called the roof flat, which means that our radar group is now in a standing resolution cell as a contact. As we looked around, we noticed that we saw some light water off our right side. It's important to note the weather on this day was as close to perfect as you could ask for off the coast of San Diego. Clear skies, light winds, palm seas, no white caps or waves. So the white line stood out in the hard blue ocean. All four of us, because we were not thinking of, so we had pilots and wisdom in the back seat. Looked down and saw a solid white tic-tac object with a longitudinal axis pointing north-south and moving very abruptly over the water. There were no rotors, no rotor wash, or any sign of visual control sources or any wind. As we started clockwise towards the object, my Rizzo and I decided to go down and take a closer look at the other aircraft staying at high cover to observe both us and the tic-tac. We proceeded around the circle about 90 degrees from the start of our descent, and the object suddenly shifted its longitudinal axis, aligned with my aircraft, and began to climb. We continued down another 270 degrees, nose low, where the tic-tac, 270 degrees, and we went nose low where the tic-tac would have been. Our altitude at this point was up 15,000 feet, and the tic-tac was about 12,000. As we pulled nose onto the object, within about a half mile of it, it rapidly accelerated in front of us and disappeared. Our wingman, roughly 8,000 feet above us, lost contact also. We immediately turned back to see where the white water was at, and it was gone also. So we started to turn back towards the east, and the controller came up and said, "Sir, you're not going to believe this." We take things like that, roughly 60 miles away. We returned to Nimitz, taking off the deer, talking about the getting ready to launch, we mentioned it to them. And they went out and luckily got the video. You can see that 90-second video.
As Commander Fraser's group returns to the aircraft, he briefed the next squad crew that was deployed and told them our group heading out was equipped with an advanced targeting, forward-looking infrared camera system. This was controlled by the weapons system operator seated behind the pilot, who was Chad Underwood. Can you just appreciate that name for a second? Chad Underwood. Frat boys, all frat boys. Anyway, minutes after departure, Underwood locked onto something on his radar a few hundreds of kilometers away. Underwood said,
"The part that drew our attention was how the object wasn't behaving within the
Now, let's watch the video with sequential import of track. As you can see, the black and white version of the video was infrared, and Underwood changes to visible light, revealing the glowing oval object of distance. He then changes back to infrared and toggles his zoom to US times. Suddenly, the UFO disappears off the side of the Australia. Unfortunately, the target was too far away to be seen with the naked eye. The Underwood nor his pilot made visual contact. Following their encounter, the Naval Strike Group continued detecting anomalous radar tracks for at least 2 more days. Skeptics have tried to explain the footage as being an airplane of some sort, but airplanes can't zip around the sky as if gravity is non-existent. And whilst the witness accounts are so extraordinary that you may assume they're made up, consider the dozens of high-ranking and highly reliable military personnel corroborating the stories. Commander Fravor, along with other witnesses, also claimed that they saw an extended version of the video that was in a higher resolution, but it has never been released. All footage from the events were supposedly erased the evening of the day they were recorded. Numerous witnesses on both ships in the strike group also claimed they saw 2 men arrive on a helicopter who collected the relevant data before wiping all the tapes and photographs. The witnesses said they never saw anything like it before. Potentially, this could be evidence of a cover-up of some kind. Maybe the government is aware of the existence of reliable technology, but they don't want all of us aware of them for one reason or another. Maybe the government assumes there will be a mass hysteria they would like to avoid, or maybe they're just keeping it a secret so our adversaries are kept control. It could also be the case that these sightings are just a top-secret military technology, like drones or aircraft, that the government is taking active steps towards keeping under covers. We know they're developing incredible tech, but still, surely gravity-defying tic-tacs are a step too far. We can only wonder what the flight crew saw that day. But my mind does wonder. All we know is that Commander Fravor estimated the craft to be roughly 12 to 15 meters long, like a tic-tac. Were the tic-tacs opaque, looking somewhat like the typical UFOs we're used to? Or did the tic-tacs have cockpits with alien pilots controlling the craft, only zooming off after their operation was fully? Unfortunately, we wouldn't know. But what we do know is that this wasn't an isolated incident. As I will explain later. The secrets of Area 51. Area 51, the center of practically all alien conspiracies, with new constant rumors of extraterrestrial research taking place at this secret military development and testing base. You have to wonder if there's any truth to them all. If you ask Bob Lazar, then the answer is a big fat yes. See, Bob claims to have been hired to work at Area 51 in the late 80s. For an astonishing reason, to reverse engineer alien spacecraft. Lazar claimed all the way back in 1997 that the captured craft he was reverse engineering ran on an antimatter reactor, which was powered by a single flame element 115, which wouldn't be officially created by our Earth scientists until 2003, and we can still barely stabilize it. Lazar said the reactor he studied was topped by a sphere the size of a basketball, which emitted a force field capable of repulsing human flesh. He explained that the craft was split into 2 main levels. The reactor was positioned at the center of the upper level, with an antenna extending to the top, surrounded by 3 gravity amplifiers. He said these functioned as a sort of guide for the gravity wave that forms into a heart shape around the entire craft, narrowing at the bottom. These connected to gravity emitters on the lower level, which can rotate 180 degrees to output an anti-gravity wave, and that the craft would then travel belly first into this distortion field. Basically, according to Bob, flying saucers fly sideways rather than upright, with opposable engines allowing the craft to move in any direction. Not only that, Bob also claimed he read briefing documents describing the historical involvement of Earth for the past 10,000 years with extraterrestrial beings, described as the typical gray aliens that were about child size, of which he had seen cadavers of similar size. To this day, all organizations where Bob claims he worked or studied vehemently denies he was ever there. Yet, George Knapp, an American journalist who investigated Bob's claims, said that Bob displayed a knowledge of the facility that could only be acquired by someone who couldn't. Of course, some claim it's all part of the cover-up. Many even suggest he is a somewhat inexperienced techie. The guy built a jet car for fun and has been featured in multiple newspapers for his creations. So he's clearly a distinguished engineer. Bob even claimed they used a specific biometric hand scanner interface, which measured the length of bones in your hands to authorize access to the face. The government denied this at first, but decades later, the Department of Defense admitted they did in fact use it at Area 51 in the 80s for the stealth fighter program. And Bob confirmed the one they declassified matched what he would use. At any time, either of those organizations could have simply said that, yes, Bob Lazar worked for them, and they didn't have to hear of his degenerate mental state or something like that. But no, they still insist they don't know who he is despite all of them. It's not to say we know he is telling the complete truth, but there's too many shadowy coincidences here for anyone to be comfortably skeptical. So are there any truth to Bob's claims? Well, he's maintained the same story for over 30 years at this point, and passed lie detector tests on the subject. So maybe? It's worth noting that the guy has been convicted several times of crimes since his testimony, which his critics have used to discredit his story. But who knows? Was Bob's own truth? Well, some of the sightings coming up might make you think he's telling the truth. Remember I told you that Tic Tac video wasn't an isolated incident? A similar encounter was filmed on the southeastern coast of America in early 2015. Those who recorded it have yet to come forward, but some crewmates and fellow pilots have provided some of the backstory that goes like this. Roughly 10 years after the initial Tic Tac sightings in the summer of 2004, a Naval strike group led by the aircraft carrier USS Theodore Roosevelt led training exercises somewhere off the coast of Virginia. The encounter was strikingly similar to the previous one explained.
It's almost 2 hour anniversary to our life. That's the exact same time.
Anomalous radar tracks were spotted and initially dismissed.
我爭你揾聖經都講食嘅。
Were being detected defying the laws of physics. After double checking all their equipment, they were certain what they were seeing had to be real. Early interceptions were initially unsuccessful, until one day, two jets no more than a few tens of meters apart narrowly avoided a nightmare collision when something flew one in between. Although the pilots themselves haven't come forward, fellow F-18 pilot Lieutenant Ryan Graves spoke about the pilot's approach and said the experience had visually spooked him. Here's what he had to say about the encounter at the UAP production hearing.
During a training mission in Warren Area Physical Study 2, 10 miles on the coast of beach, two F-18 Super Hornets were split by a UAV. Often, described as a dark gray or black cube inside the clear sphere, came within 50 feet of the lead aircraft, was estimated from 5 to 15 feet in diameter. The mission commander terminated the flight immediately and returned to base. Their squadron submitted a safety report, but there was no official acknowledgement of the incident and no further mechanism to report the sighting. Soon, these encounters became so frequent that aircrew would discuss the risk of UAV as part of their regular pre-flight cruise.
This time, the craft was described as a cube encased by a translucent sphere. Obviously, both pilots must have been incredibly startled, so it's hard to figure out exactly what they saw in such a short space of time. But I've created a few images of the craft for entertainment purposes, and I've added a little extra aliens. It's mentioned seeing them, so to think they were there. Anyway, Lieutenant Ryan Graves said this wasn't an isolated incident, and that similar things have been seen by dozens of pilots for several months, and that the object spotted could remain airborne for up to 20 hours at a time. A few months later, in 2015, when the USS Theodore Roosevelt had made its way over by the coast of Florida, during a separate incident, pilots captured another one, that shocked everyone involved. The interesting thing about this is that the craft captured seemed to rotate and fly in a fashion somewhat similar to that described by Dr. Lazar. The craft even has a heart-like shape, which resembles how Lazar claimed the craft's reverse engineered warp gravity around it. However, some debunkers claim the rotation seen in the video is an optical illusion caused by the derotation content of the camera. That said, the two pilots themselves failed to recognize it as an image rotation. Surely, if anyone could spot image rotation, they would be the ones who would know what it looks like. Both pilots believe the craft actually rotated. Even Jeremy Corbett, an electro-optical engineer and expert in ATF LIR camera system, explained it's not an optical illusion. Besides, if it were an optical illusion, that doesn't explain what the pilots remarked about in the following clip. It seems nothing yet has explained how a whole fleet could travel cross-wind at that speed. With all that said, it's interesting to hear about the man responsible for making these videos public, Plese. He was the head of a secret government-funded effort to investigate UFO sightings known as the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. In late 2017, he became so disillusioned with the government's efforts, he decided to resign. He claimed that certain individuals within the government are staunchly opposed to UFO research, and that the government is unconcerned about something that could affect national security. Indeed, many military personnel claim these sightings are common but underreported, as individuals fear for their career. Should they speak out and risk looking like a tinfoil hat wearer at the expense of another promotion? Certainly, there is a stigma around the UFO topic, which is precisely the reason the government now uses UAP instead of UFO to avoid the unwanted association of aliens, spaceships, and pro-alien attacks. Lieutenant Ryan Graves summarizes the misconceptions around UFO sightings among the U.S. government during his speech to Congress.
My name is Ryan Bob Graves, and I'm a former F-18 pilot who completed his service in the U.S. Navy, including 2 deployments on board and I have served as an F-18 personnel, commercial aircrew, and military veterans who have provided their similar countries with me. Today, I would like to highlight 3 core issues that demand combat. As we convene here, UAP are in our airspace, but they are grossly underreported. These sightings are not rare or isolated, they are routine. Military aircrew and commercial pilots, community servers whose lives depend on accurate communication, are frequently witnessing these phenomena. The stigma attached to UAP is real and powerful and challenges national security. The silence of commercial pilots who fear repercussions, discourage witnessing, is only compounded by recent government claims questioning the credibility of eyewitness testimony. Parts of our government are aware more of UAP than they were not. Excessive classification practices keep information hidden. Since 2021, all UAP videos are classified as secret or above. This level of secrecy not only feeds our understanding, but fuels speculation and mistrust.
In fact, in 2021, the U.S. Office of the Director of National Intelligence released a preliminary report on the official findings shaped into the report. The report of evidence gathered in U.S. media reports and concluded that they basically had no idea what UAPs were. The UAPs dropped the sound barrier without producing sonic boom and move with no disturbance or propulsion, and travel with such speed and usability. We typically destroy all accepted historical recordings were most likely physical objects, and there are a possible safety issue that could pose a security problem. Ultimately, these individuals are some of the most reliable witnesses you can hope for. The stories would have done. They were joined with one other whistleblower at the congressional hearing. The story is perhaps even more disturbing. This is
而家買開中文學生熟悉呢啲中學嗰度書裏面仲有七字遊戲俾你㗎，記得飲下健康生水杯啊！
之前講過。
his former intelligence official, David Gillette, who dropped some bombshells. Not only did he claim that the U.S. government has had contact with alien species, but also that they've recovered down the spacecraft and the remains of non-human parts. To make matters even crazier, Rush also claims that the U.S. has come across actively malevolent alien races. These would reveal some serious danger. Yikes. But if all this really is true, why the heck haven't we heard about it until now? Well, as we probably guessed, Rush blames the government for orchestrating a elaborate recovery. Not content with simply pulling the wool over our eyes, he asserted that U.S. agents actively targeted and paid for people who threatened to reveal these secrets in past. So, if Rush ever goes missing, I think we all know where things would be pointed. Of course, the U.S. government responded exactly how you'd expect them to. In July of 2023, during the congressional hearing mentioned already, while under oath, he reiterated that there was a massive cover-up going on, and the U.S. government had indeed recovered non-human remains.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do you have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my news commission review, biologics came from some of these recoveries.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, that was the assessment of people with technology program I talked to that are currently still there.
And even specified further on his claims of alien races posing a threat.
So, at one point you had said that they're not. Has been harmful activity or aggressive activity. Has any of the activity been aggressive, been hostile in your reports? I know of all the reports in my analysis, and the activity by UAPs or by people within the both. Okay.
Unfortunately, Rush couldn't answer a lot of questions publicly for legal reasons, but did mention he was willing to speak with congressmen privately and reveal more information. Who knows what secrets he has to share? What do you think? Is this the most credible evidence of alien life yet? Or just a 15 minutes? Now, before I move on, there is one part of Mr. Rush's testimony which is particularly striking.
At the time, due to my extensive executive level intelligence support duties, I was cleared to literally all relevant departments in a position of true trust with my military and civilian classes. I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash report
It's true. This would support the statements made by Bob Lazar, as well as the other whistleblowers at the hearing, along with thousands of various incidents reported over the decades. Now, let's delve into some of the most credible sightings from often available to the world. Food fires. November 1944, a U.S. fighter plane tore through the night skies above the Rhine Valley of the French-German border. In the blue,
Nice.
noticed
Maybe you should use Kitty instead.
believing them to be German air weapons, they turned to fight. But the lights suddenly disappeared. And this was only the beginning of a long list of unexplainable sightings. Other wartime pilots reported strange luminous orbs, flashing lights, and even an unknown object flying close beside them. They came to call these mysterious objects Foo Fighters, after a line from a popular comic book at the time called Smokey Stover. And yet, there's also a band with the same name, but I don't think Dave Grohl was hanging around in the 1940s. So what were those Foo Fighters? Well,
Some believe the soldiers didn't see anything at all and were actually suffering from combat fatigue. In other words, the stress and trauma of the war had affected them so much they'd started hallucinating. But people that knew them said they seemed very level-headed. Others put forward the idea that the Foo Fighters were actually experimental and incredible. But wouldn't we know by now that was the answer? Indeed, many people think they really were alien visitors come to observe and learn about the aircraft. If that's the case, though, why don't we see UFOs following us whenever we go on vacation? Well, think about it. The Second World War was the most destructive conflict in human history. Maybe extraterrestrials heard all the commotion from a galaxy far away, even to find out what the fuss was about. Then, after seeing how stupid we can be, then no doubt again that the sightings were done. I'd say I really blame them. Don't worry though, just like and subscribe to VMAs for all the knowledge injections you need to impress the aliens when they next come back around. Also, wait, let's get back to recess to remember. Kids aren't exactly the most reliable source. I mean, they say a lot of stupid stories. But what about when the whole class of kids has a exact story? And what if all of them insist the stories are true? Nearly 30 years after. Okay, now I have my answers. Back in 1994, Bus over at the Imperial School, and no, it wasn't a piece of fry. During the motivation, no less than 62 students
No
humanoid creatures clad in black stepped out before the children. The new beings slowly approached. But it seems they came in peace. Rather than attacking, they came for it. Telepathically beamed messages about the importance of environmentalism into the children's minds before abruptly leaving. Right. While not all students saw the craft that fateful day, many of the kids that did have been adamant about the events that took place ever since. Looking at it from a skeptical point, it's possible the whole thing was just a case of mass hysteria, and that's when a group of people suffer a collective delusion. We aren't entirely sure why this happens, but anxiety is thought to be one of the causes. Just 2 days prior to the incident, there have been several UFO sightings across southern Africa. This created an atmosphere of anxiety. And it could have become hysterical if the kids manifested in an extraterrestrial encounter at home. I'm not convinced. Some of them even drew pictures, and they have startling similarities between them. And would children really think the word environmentalism in the story? I'm not saying. Saying this is, there's definitely something more than hysterical play here.
Yes, send it, send X's.
UFO sightings took place that would mark the beginning of a tremendous wave of encounters that shocked the world. On a fateful November night, over 30 different groups of people recorded seeing something odd in the skies above them. A strange triangular object with indistinct glowing lights. Well, for the next 5 or so months, over 2,000 sightings were reported across the country. That's a lot of employees. The Belgian government actually got fed up with hearing these reports, and when the U.S. was testing some aircraft but the Americans told them such tests were taking place. With little going on, the Belgian government saw only one way to get to the bottom of the situation, getting up close and personal with one of these supposed
So when the reports of the Senate came in one March night, jets were scrambling to send to meet with the enigmatic visitor. Frustratingly, the fighter pilots couldn't see the object in the sky.
Anyway, it's 2 hours of filming.
Jumping great distances before accelerating way beyond the man-made craft's capability and just vanishing. After that, it counter-disappointingly came again. While the Belgian government were quick to dismiss the whole affair, they couldn't provide any compelling alternative explanations. It's possible the sheer gravitas of the initial sightings inspired paranoia among citizens, making them more susceptible to the idea of seeing triangular shapes in the sky. But that doesn't explain the mysterious radar threat. I think the answer is obvious. These were aliens, just dropping by for that sweet Belgian pleasure. Skinny Bob. Most phony alien encounters involve off-puttingly grainy photos of faraway spaceships. That's because it takes a whole lot of cash, time, and skill to convincingly fake an alien to come close. Which is exactly what makes Skinny Bob such an enigma. No, it's not the name of my estranged nephew. It's an alleged alien. Let me explain. In 2011, a Reddit user named Ivan posted a startling video clip to the website, claiming it was recorded by the KGB. This is Skinny Bob. Crikey. I don't know about you, but I'm seriously creeped out. What exactly are we looking at? Is this real? It certainly looks it, right? According to Ivan, the alien was on a diplomatic mission from the Zeta Reticuli star system and had been sent to discuss matters of mutual concern. What exactly those matters were wasn't disclosed, but supposedly what you're seeing is an excerpt from an interview with the being. Visual effects expert Randy Sharp, who worked on the likes of I Am Legend and Watchmen, looked at the footage and gave some startling testimony. According to him, if it was a fake, it would have truly tested the tech available in 2011 and took somebody with a crazy level of skill and knowledge to pull it off. On top of that, it would have cost an arm and a leg, somewhere in the ballpark of $250,000. So, given that nobody has ever claimed ownership of the video or tried to profit from it, such an expensive prank seems illogical. Is it a real thing? Who knows? I guess we should keep an eye out for Skinny Bob appearing in any more movies. Though, it has been over a decade, so maybe he's more of a fat Bob these days. The Phoenix Lights. Okay, so far we've covered some very widely observed UFO sightings, but nothing can match the sheer number of people that reported seeing what became known as the Phoenix Lights. The Phoenix Lights were two events that happened on the evening of March 13th, 1997, in the skies above Nevada and Arizona. The first event started at around 7:30 p.m., when a witness in Henderson, Nevada, reported seeing an array of glowing orbs in the sky. There, they slowly made their way across state lines to Phoenix, Arizona. A near 300-mile journey that was seen by thousands upon thousands of people, including actor Kurt Russell. The lights made the shape of a V, with some observers claiming they could faintly see the craft itself through the clouds. Then they passed over the city and disappeared from the trees. What? And it gets weirder. At around 10 p.m., most of the people in Phoenix also reported seeing a separate row of bright lights hovering in the sky. According to the author and renowned UFO skeptic, Robert Schaefer, these lights actually originated from two separate U.S. Air Force training exercises with F-10 jets. One exercise consisted of the planes flying in a triangle formation and another of them firing flames. What a buzzkill.
玻璃門係咩嚟嘅先？
Explodes, right?
印度嗰啲文化玻璃門，你知唔知啊？唔知啊？你睇玻璃門嗰啲電影，你咁多印巴人嗰隻。
In 2007, former Arizona governor and witness John Fife Symington III came out to speak on the lights. As a pilot, he claims to know every aircraft imaginable. Whatever he saw that night was not something to recognize. Not content with just discrediting the official explanation, He also expressed his support for the government to investigate further. To this day, however, we still don't have a solid answer. So I guess for now, the whole thing is very much up in the air. So, now more. Don't you just hate uninvited guests? Well, back in 2017, our solar system got one of them.
我先其實咧要開個樓一陣咧，學校要做 rehearsal，好似星期一啊，
星期一啊，星期一翻學嗰時，翻學嗰日。喺學校好啊，
我俾聽。
我覺得你睇下幾時翻去。
我可能出去食嘢。
嚇？
我可能出去食嘢，我出去食嘢啦。
食嘢。
哦，你都要出去食嘢㗎啦，呢間我食飯你食。
Visitor was still more and more meaning a messenger from afar.
你留喺度。
幫手抹佢。
你留喺度，你早放學咩
？B
我唔知。
你冇早放學嘛？暫時都要暫時出去食住先㗎啦。
洗手。
from afar, it was the first object of its kind we've ever seen. Naturally, then, its sudden appearance was exciting for some, but it was also unnerving. Just what was this thing? Well, it was cigar-shaped and traveled at astounding speeds of up to 55 miles a second, a whopping 20 miles per second faster than the average speed of a comet. But unlike comets, it had no visible tail of space dust behind it. The strange object raced through our solar system for 11 days and left again, never to return. Curiouser and curiouser. As you might have guessed, many were quick to cry alien, and understandably so. It seems to defy all explanation. That being said, people have tried to explain it. Some believe Oumuamua was a block of solid hydrogen, while others are sure it was a comet after all, just one with strange, mysterious properties. Scientists say it was a bit of both, a comet filled with hydrogen atoms. Remember how much faster it was than ordinary comets? Well, the clever clogs at NASA reckon that when it passed by our sun, the heat released the comet's hydrogen, causing the burst of extra speed. They also say there is no tail because hydrogen doesn't have the momentum to pull space dust behind it. But what do you think? Was Oumuamua really just a big old space rock? Or is all that just smoke and mirrors? I mean, if an alien spaceship did come to our solar system to monitor us, wouldn't our governments want to cover it up to stop mass panic? I'd love to hear your theories in the comments below. Crystal clear. Let's be real. UFO photos almost always look like they've been taken using a toaster. Either super blurry or don't resemble UFOs at all. With that in mind, I'd like to present you with something absolutely incredible. A UFO photo that actually looks like it was taken using a functioning camera.
Hold it there.
Oh! This is a California photo. Widely known as the clearest UFO seen on ever. Captured in Scotland by two young chefs in 1990. The incredible image shows a strange diamond-shaped object flying in front of a conventional plane. The two chefs sent it to a newspaper, but instead of publishing it, the paper passed the image to the British Ministry of Defence, where it promptly disappeared.
見到啊，不過好貴啊。
Then,
我睇緊呢個印度。
they caught it, finally tracked it down. After first hearing about the story in 2009, but without the photographic evidence itself.
點啊？我聽呢個係咪？呢個佢真係講嘅，呢個呢個哦呢個。 你睇差唔多好似啲人話點啊？我就係抄嘅，啲人話點啊？呢個人好抄嘅，唔抄喎。我唔知邊度嗰啲商場，亂啩，你聽高級房啩，好師傅。有雪櫃啲機。 那我不是，呢啲房細房呢個樓哦，呢個好似有時樓梯嘅，啊細路仔，兩張床啦，好似呢啲咁，一般差唔多係咪？ 因為高級啲，我以前係租一般嘅咯，啲咯，係咯，唔使高級。都好咩咁樣嘅。
呢個係好似
一般。
有埋嗰啲主食，
我係高級嚟㗎，高級咯，高級。
咁貴嘅，有冇平嘅？
有低級嘅。
It captivated him ever since.
啲唔公唔公？
Eventually, he tracked down a
3蚊㗎
former
咋，
officer who held onto a
再300咁啊！
Originally, the retired officer had been waiting for someone to call him about it for years. So it was more than one. And other UFO studies, this one can be easily developed.
我就係你乾淨啦。
Concluded that the object is definitely there in front of the camera. So there's no editing trickery going on. The RAF officer that held on to it also said that when the photo was sent in, the witnesses claimed the craft made no noise whatsoever. Who the witnesses actually are, though, we don't know. Though the names of the FBI photos should have been released in 2021, British authorities have refused to do so until 2076, citing privacy concerns. Suspicious much? What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. The Battle of LA. You remember the Foo Fighters I told you about earlier? Those strange lights that followed pilots around during the Second World War. Well, that wasn't the only time aliens allegedly came down to investigate us in wartime. Oh no. There was the Battle of Los Angeles. Shortly after joining the war, the USA was still reeling from the Japanese attack on their naval base at Pearl Harbor. The country was on high alert, preparing for the possibility of another strike on U.S. soil. So, when air raid sirens sounded in LA County one February night in 1942, troops ran desperately to the anti-aircraft guns and started firing. Soon the sky was filled with smoke, shrapnel, and fire in a defensive barrage that lasted over an hour. Then, silence. But as the sun rose, soldiers realized something very peculiar. There seems to have been no enemy at all. Absolutely nothing had been shot down. So what happened? Some witnesses claimed to have seen a single balloon-like craft in the sky. Something ufologists are adamant is evidence of extraterrestrial activity. A now iconic photo showing countless searchlights focusing on an unknown object served as fuel for the fire. Could there be something alien amidst all bright lights? Well, possibly. But it turns out the original image was heavily edited prior to being published in newspapers, so it would be clearer to see in black and white print. What's more, the U.S. Air Force concluded that a series of meteorological air balloons were released over Los Angeles at the time, which probably started the scare. So no aliens this time, although there's always a chance it was a cover-up. The Turkish UFO incident. Many UFO sightings are highly... Publicized cases that have inspired repeated debate over the case.
Wow, why is that?
Lesser known, like the Turkish UFO incident. Between 2007 and 2009, 12 different witnesses came forward claiming they'd seen a craft in the sky off the coast of China. While we don't have to take their word for it, we've been filming. It's shaky. Really close on a separate sighting of the thing.
大洗衣機我想講啲大洗衣機。
睇啦，睇下周圍真係唔好講啦，周圍個價錢啊。
哇，2000幾喎。
You can definitely see two figures moving around inside.
你都係
Authorities were quick to try to dismiss the sighting. Elaborate posts. That proved very hard to do. Shocking footage was received by two separate sponsored boards. In fact, they were forced to conclude that it was genuine. Now, that's not to say that they believed it was aliens,
But they wasn't edited, and that the vehicle didn't conform to Honestly, I'm shocked that this one hasn't had more exposure. You can practically see the two tires inside. Ants abducted. It was an unassuming night in October of 1957. In an effort to avoid the hot daytime sun, 23-year-old Brazilian Antonio Villas-Boas had decided to work in the fields of his farm in the evening. Suddenly, he was distracted from his labor by an ominous red star appearing in the dark sky. It grew bigger and bigger until, he realized it was headed right for him. Antonio watched in horror as the star revealed itself to be some kind of an alien spaceship preparing to land. Then he noticed the star, so he was forced to flee on foot. Something was chasing him. Whatever it was, Antonio yelled as he was tackled by several humanoid creatures who subdued him and dragged him onto the ship. While aboard, he was stripped naked and covered in strange jam. The creatures took a blood sample from his chin, which made him feel seriously ill. As he sat there, naked, gooey, and sick on an alien spacecraft, Antonio thought this night was period. He was wrong. Suddenly, a new female alien entered the room and seduced him. Yeah. One thing led to another, and Antonio wound up doing the nasty with the alien baby. Then, after completing his task, he was given a quick tour of the ship before being dropped off back home. Okay. So that wasn't a fever dream I had last night. It's supposedly a true account as told by Antonio himself. I'm sure you're pretty suspicious of the story, as most were when he first came out with it, but just wait. Antonio was examined by medical professionals shortly after the alleged incident and was found to be suffering from bleeding sickness. Now, I'm not saying that means his wild tale is true, but I'm having trouble figuring out how also could have gotten radiation poisoning. Either way, our spacefaring farmer stuck to the story for the rest of his life until he passed away in 1991. Was old Antonio really a victim of alien abduction? Or was it all just a ploy for attention? Now that he's it seems one never know for sure. All enigma. This Russian body of water is the oldest and deepest lake in the world, with a colossal depth of some 5,400 feet. That means 2 to scale replicas of the world's tallest building could fit in there, stacked on top of each other. Naturally, the lake has inspired countless legends, and been the site of an awful lot of alien activity. Many people over the years have reported seeing strange lights, craft, and even mysterious figures skulking around the shoreline. In 2009, one Sergei Golinchik and his son stepped outside to watch the sunset over the waters. In a shock, they saw 2 strange glowing points rise out of the lake and start flicking above it. Thankfully, Sergei managed to snag a picture of these ominous lights before they vanished back into the darkness. Whatever they saw, it was definitely real. But sightings don't just take place around the lake, they also happen inside it. In 1982, a squad of Russian military divers reportedly encountered a group of abnormally tall humanoid creatures swimming 160 feet below the surface of Black Lake. The group attempted to subdue and capture one of the strange beings, only to be forcefully ejected from the water by them. Now, if you surface too quickly while diving, you'll suffer from decompression sickness, or the bends, a potentially fatal condition caused by the rapid change in pressure. Sure enough, several of the divers passed away shortly after surfacing. Jeez. Those aliens don't sound too friendly. Or this story could have been just made up, but when combined with Sergei's photo and countless other tales surrounding the lake, you can't help but think something must be going on. MIB.
I'm sure you've at least heard of the Men in Black movies. Apart from that awful spin-off, but did you know that they're based on a real-life phenomenon? Terrifying. See, when people report extraterrestrial activity, they sometimes get a visit from the real-life MIB. Only they don't get Will Smith at the door. Creepy men clad entirely in black have supposedly tracked down witnesses and either intimidated them into silence or in some sort made them. One particularly strange story occurred in 2010. It was caught on camera. Here you can see two insidious interlopers in a hotel in Ontario, Canada. Two bizarre men dressed in black wandered into the lobby. They had no eyebrows and eyelashes, seemed to be wearing plates underneath their hats, and looked identical in appearance. Then, according to witnesses, the duo began drilling the bellboy to let them see men Shane sober. When the bellboy told them that Shane wasn't working, they didn't believe him and began rummaging around as if they owned the place. Whatever they were looking for, it seems they didn't find it. Eventually, the strangers disappeared without a trace, and we never heard from them again. Why were they there in the first place? Well, Shane had reported seeing a large triangular UFO above the Niagara Falls the year before. We'd mostly forgotten the incident, but it seems that everybody had. Creepy, huh? Most ufologists believe the Men in Black are government agents tasked with suppressing word on alien sightings. But what if it's more than that? No, not any time. Identical appearances? What if these guys are aliens themselves? Would it not be in their best interest to keep aliens under wraps so they can carry on doing whatever it is they do? See two Men in Black suits approaching.
佢平時300-400蚊，
哇！平時600幾嘅
300幾，平時呢個價錢啦。你睇，嗱呢間最平102嘅，最平。
我冇 case 呢個係新。
最平102
係大床啦，唔得嘛。
係，而家係319，呢個係個價錢。
This animal will break you. I'm tearing up just making this video.
It's like South Korea.
You've probably been wondering why our farm is missing.
Apps
So let me tell you what's been going on about this week. Because which is actually pretty impressive. Some sort of project that I've recently moved into much smaller. What this means is that the growing season in England is as you can see, the winter plants are also getting slower. However, there are more flies around now, like this fly here, scoping up the traps for another fly that will use them later. Anyway, you may not have known this, but carnivorous plants go dormant in winter. What I didn't know is that the plants go dormant so much sooner than they
全部都大床嚟㗎，維康貴啲嘛。一樣一千個雞最平啦，點解我睇咗？
Try to stop it. You've probably been
你
wondering.
呢度揀啦，你地圖可以揀。
我哋而家係去邊度買啊？下午神啊！
黐門啊！
係，因為就好遠。
好遠啲，點解唔平啊？你睇晒。我哋喺呢度。
先。咁就另外一個地點咧？
你咪望晒咯。
唔係之後你去呢度去，跟住邊啊？
你唔係去游水咩？
咁游水邊度㗎？
去澳門啊嘛。
澳門啲仲貴啊！
澳門梗係仲貴啦，澳門
1000幾啊！哇，1000幾！
4000幾啲啊，你睇啦，我本嚟都睇緊啦，一定係過翻珠海話最平嗰度嘅。你玩完水咪過去珠海住咯，住完喺珠海玩，你話去嗰個咩？
Look at the precision and incredible detail carved into this statue. It's made from several limestone and was cut directly from the bedrock. This is the colossal statue of Ramses II, one of the most powerful pharaohs in ancient Egyptian history. It stands at a height of approximately 10 meters, or 33 feet. The muscle tone and detail around the kneecap is incredible, and it's the same on his arm. It's not easy to carve this level of precision in any statue, especially a colossal statue of this size. Look at how precise the garment is. All of this was supposed to have been done by hand, with primitive tools and absolutely no machinery or advanced technology. Look at the precision and it.
有啲幾百蚊嘅，呢啲咁
唔可以，
點知佢乾唔乾淨啊？呢個
即係一年落嗰個，呢成。
係啊，邊個你要俾嚟㗎？你嗰陣時候開住㗎？
邊度？
開電㗎，閂咗佢啦。
喂，你同我睇一個男嘅生咗未啊 B B？
應該係。
應該生咗啦。